Hello everyone, Luciano Oliveira, Oliveira Lawyers. Today is Wednesday, October the 9th, 3 minutes after our scheduled time of 12:30. And here we are with one more live stream. We're gonna wait for our friends to show up, and we're gonna be discussing a few topics in the meantime. Particularly how to negotiate when buying real estate in Brazil. That's a interesting topic, and people usually seek our services, particularly on the legal side, to make sure that they are buying a property that is free of legal issues such as liens. As you probably know, in Brazil, there is no escrow and there is no title insurance as you would find in the United States. So that means once your money is in the seller's pocket, there is no way out of the transaction. If you buy a property with a bad title, the only recourse you would have, it would be to sue the seller, right? Sellers, whenever they get your money, they always have something lined up. They're gonna either pay that or they're gonna, invest the money. They will never keep the money in their bank. So lawsuits in general are also not very helpful. Because of that, the due diligence prior to paying the seller, it is key. And particularly, because of the lack of escrow in Brazil, the idea is to pay the seller at closing. But because you're going to be sending this money from abroad, naturally, you cannot make a wire transfer from abroad and expect this money to show up in the seller's bank account. There is a need for compliance. There is the usual red tape in Brazil as for pretty much everything. So all of those things, they need to be factored into the negotiation process. Okay, but when you talk about negotiation, the focus is usually on the price, right? On how much you're gonna pay for the property, and it is always interesting to see here at the firm, how easy is for Brazilian parties to drive foreign citizens in terms of accepting the asked price or conditions that could be better for the foreign citizen buyer, right? The reasons for that, what we see going on, what we see happening in the negotiation, is that sometimes the seller is visiting Brazil in a short trip. Like they see, few properties, they get attached to one, and then they go back to either the United States or other countries, and then they are kind of really attached to this kind of opportunity as they think, right? But that's why whenever we are working with our clients, we usually say, listen. Don't have a single property in your radar. Make sure you have at least a short list with a few properties, because this is going to help so much with the negotiation. Because if the seller sees that you have options, you have a much more leverage. Okay, but that's not what we see in our transactions. It's usually, a seller who's attached to a property. They try to negotiate. The seller says no, and they're so quick to say, all right, I'm going to sign, I'm going to accept the terms of the deal. Brazilian buyers, on the other hand, they know it takes a while for the seller, to reduce the price. Even though the seller says no at the first moment, they may say yes after a week or so, particularly if you give some radio silence, right? Like particularly if you hold your cards, okay? Now, if you just like, if the seller says no, and next day you say, all right, like I don't want to lose that, say yes, okay? So that's what we usually see. So that's our recommendation. Like if we could summarize in a sentence or two, I would say, have options and show willingness to walk away. All right. So that's my advice. Like, I see that happening all the time. Okay, we have a few friends over here. Charles Jones, bom dia from Dallas. Hi, Charles. Good to see you over here. Oliuni, Olaf from Floripa. How are things over there, Oliuni? Election day is over. Now, are people back to work over there in Floripa? Are you enjoying the beautiful beaches over there, Oliuni? How are things going for you? Also, know that, Floripa usually has pretty good internet connection. So if you are working from Floripa or Uni, let us know how is your experience right now. We have Santingo, bom dia from Belém. All right, Belém do Pará, right, San? How is Belém do Pará? Belém do Pará, for those of you who don't know, is like in the north side of the country. It is in the Amazon, okay? It is in the Amazon, right? Like whenever we think about the Amazon, of course, you have the Amazon rainforest, you have the Amazon, the geographic location known as Amazon. We also have the state of Amazonas, right? Which is a state within the Amazon that is called Amazonas. And right next to Amazonas, we have the state of Pará. A pretty different experience, right? Like, I mean, if you know São Paulo, if you know Rio de Janeiro, if you know Floripa, the experience when you go to the north of the country is like radically different. It's pretty much like two different countries. I would say, like the accent is pretty different, like the, people's behavior, it's going to be different. Business is different. Like, I mean, as you can tell, like Brazil has like a continental dimensions. And therefore, whenever you come to Brazil, it's almost like you getting several countries in one. A comparison I like to do over here, like, if you get residency in Portugal, for instance, you're going to get access to the European Union, a total of 27 countries. So it sounds like an amazing deal, right? And it is, by the way. Now, if you get Brazil, you're getting a single country, but guess what? What you're getting in Brazil, at least from like size, and geographical locations, is actually twice as big as the European Union. So you get, in my opinion, an even better deal when you come to Brazil. A single country, but double the size of the European Union. Pretty amazing. Like, I am, of course, like Brazilian by birth, and I've been traveling throughout the country. I've been to Amazon. I've been to the Northeast. Like, Northeast is actually my number one destination in Brazil. But I'm originally from São Paulo. My presence at the office is more often in the Rio de Janeiro office. I also go to Florianópolis, like the south of the country, Camboriú, other cities. But, there is always something new for me to learn about my own country. What you say about you guys who are in this journey of discovering Brazil. You guys are lucky, I can tell. All right, Oliuni says, Floripa is good, just rainy presently. All is well. Good to know, Oliuni. Very happy to be part of your journey, by the way. Very happy and proud. Okay, Aaron Lopez. Welcome back, Aaron. Good to see you over here. Aaron says, hi there, tudo bem? Are you seeing any digital nomad visas getting extended for more than 2 years? How likely it is? Aaron, yes, we are seeing some digital nomad visas being extended for more than 2 years. And nowadays, in our consultations, we are saying it is worth a shot. We don't know if there is a policy in place to approve the digital nomad visa for as many times as you want, or if this thing is in a limbo state, right? Like kind of, you know what, like there is nothing saying we cannot approve an extension for more than once, and therefore we're going to keep approving. But we are seeing, the extension happening for the second time. So our recommendation for our clients is like take a shot. And so far, we haven't seen a single denial for the second extension. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, originally, the digital nomad visa was created as a bridge visa, meaning that someone from abroad, they could come to Brazil, get a year, that's the duration of the digital nomad visa, and apply for a single extension. So meaning maximum of 2 years, right? But there was, the digital nomad visa was created under the prior federal administration. Now we have a new federal administration, right? Like before it was President Bolsonaro, now we have President Lula, very antagonic like political figures. And not surprisingly, the new administration is like implementing some changes and interpreting the prior immigration framework from a different way. So there may be an explanation. Maybe, the new administration says, all right, the prior one created the digital nomad visa, but I'm gonna make it even better. Now everybody can get as many extensions as they want, as long as they continue to meet the requirements. All right, so maybe that's the take. But, short answer to Aaron, yes, people are getting the second extension, and it looks like it's more probable than not that you're going to get the second extension. And we're going to keep reporting, Aaron, and if we have, news from the Brazilian immigration, from, the upper management of the Brazilian immigration, that this is becoming a written policy, like in a sense that yes, you can get it for sure. We're gonna report over here. All right, Santingo getting ready for Sirio here. All right, San is reporting his adventures in Belém. Belém do Pará. San, where are you in Belém? Are you like right in Belém, or are you more like in the suburbs of Belém? Because Belém is huge, right? And Pará by itself is another huge state. I'm curious, San, where are you in Belém? Charles Jones, I definitely want both a Brazilian and Portuguese passports. Yes, Charles, they are both high in like the ranking for the most sought passports in the world, and not surprisingly, right? Like two great options. Portugal is like an entry door to the European Union, and Brazil is a continent by itself. Something else to this effect, Charles, very interesting to note, like both countries, they use the 183 days rule for tax residency, meaning that if you are in Brazil for over 183 days in a given year, right, and it does not need to be a calendar year, it just needs to be like, it could be a moving year, and year that's going to start when you enter the country. If you stay in Brazil for over 183 days, guess what? You're going to become a tax resident. That's going to be the same thing in Portugal. And what we see going on here at the firm is that people are picking a couple of countries, or sometimes even 3 different countries, and they are going to reside, part-time in each of those countries, and therefore they are not going to trigger the tax residency, believe it or not. Okay, so really interesting combination. You could have, like Brazil and Portugal. We have another client like this week, like I don't recall if he was like calling real estate, if he was buying real estate, or if he was doing the digital nomad, but I remember this conversation that he was doing like Brazil and Malta, and he was, this way avoiding the tax residency in either countries. Okay, so that's. Oluni is asking what immigration services have you started offering regarding Portugal. Oluni, so for Portugal, there are even more visas or routes for one to become a resident in the country. Portugal has been doing a great job in terms of immigration pathways. I would say they are doing such a good job that now they are kind of overwhelmed. They are kind of changing some things. The European Union is kind of pushing back on Portugal because of the number of routes they are offering people. But I'm gonna tell you a few of them, right? Like maybe the most interesting ones. They have the digital nomad visa route. However, the digital nomad visa in Portugal is way more income. The income requirement is way more demanding. So in Portugal, you need over 3,000 euros per month in income for you to be able to secure the digital nomad. As you guys probably know, in Brazil it's just 1,500, so it's less than half, right? Like, and for Portugal is in euros. In the US, in Brazil we're talking about US dollars. So digital nomad visa way more demanding in Portugal. But Portugal has a really nice route, which is like the passive income. In Brazil, we have the retirement visa. In Brazil, you need like 2,000 US dollars in retirement income. It cannot be any type of income, and it's not passive income. We're talking about retirement income. Portugal makes easier for people because they say, you know what, any passive income that you have is going to be fine with me. So therefore, if you have like a rental property in the United States, for instance, and if you're getting like 1,000 US dollars a month, you would qualify to apply for the Portugal passive income route. Okay, so from my opinion, like the passive income route in Portugal is better than the digital nomad route in Portugal, right? And in Brazil is the opposite. Like the digital nomad is going to be better than the retirement one, because the retirement one, first thing, it got to be retirement income. It cannot be just passive. And the amount is going to be $2,000, while in Portugal, believe it or not, is just 120 euros per month, right? Like, I mean, really low threshold. So as you can see, countries, they are going to tweak their immigration framework in different ways. But Portugal is being overwhelmed. So they are actually stepping back on some of the visas. Like they have like a huge number of people who would travel, and this route has been shut. But until like last year, a person could be traveling in Portugal, get a job, right, as a visitor, and with this job they could basically apply for a resident status, right? Like pretty crazy. Like there is no such a thing in Brazil, there is no such a thing in other European countries, but for some reason Portugal was allowing that route. But given the sheer number of applicants, Portugal closed that door. So there is no such door anymore for people to just get a job and apply as a resident from within the country. And there is no such a thing in Brazil. But just comparing two of the tracks, another track that I like a lot in Portugal is the D2, D as in David, number 2, D2 visa. The D2 visa is also known as the Portugal Entrepreneur Visa, which is pretty amazing because there is no minimum investment. It means that you can start a business in Portugal and you can invest pretty much whatever you want as long as it makes sense. And of course, you're going to need a very well-written business plan, like to provide to the Portuguese immigration. You're going to need to have savings to keep yourself for a full year, in addition to the money to fund the business. But I love that route, particularly for entrepreneurs. There is a lot of room for business in Portugal, and it could be in different areas. Like it does not matter if you're thinking about a laundromat, like dry cleaning business, or, a bakery, a car rental service, like whatever you think, there is always room because the economy in Portugal is pretty solid, particularly given the number of, foreign citizens who are always traveling into Portugal for either a temporary stay or a more longer term stay. And there is always money being injected in the Portuguese economy. So pretty good deal. Interesting question, Oriuni. All right, Santingo is in downtown Belém. That's such a great choice, Sam. Like downtown Belém. That's pretty interesting. Downtown. I also love it downtown, right? Like, I mean, I see a lot of foreign citizens when they come to Brazil, they are not going to usually pick downtown, particularly if you are in a big city such as São Paulo. People are usually going to pick, different neighborhoods, something, a little bit fancier. And São Paulo downtown is not fancy by any means. But São Paulo downtown, that's where we have, most of the, of the main courts of the state. And since São Paulo is probably the main state in Brazil, that's where we actually are located. We are in São Paulo downtown. We also like São Paulo downtown because of, it's a very central location. You can go, to different areas. You are always kind of central, right? Like you are in downtown. So I really like downtown. But in São Paulo, I see a lot of resistance, from people to be in downtown because, yes, we have the, people in a situation of homelessness. We do have, a higher rate of, this type of, criminal acts, like people, stealing stuff. A little bit like you would see in Los Angeles, I would say, right? Like, I mean, if you would like to compare a little bit, to Los Angeles, maybe that's the thing. Like downtown São Paulo has more this feeling, of, a lot of people and a lot of things going on at the same time. But yes, great choice, Sam. All right, Charles Jones, that's my plan, basically to avoid winter from the time I enacted this plan until my last day on Earth. There you go, Charles. I can tell you are excited. Now, just tell me, Charles, what is the second country for your plans? Like, are you planning to do Brazil slash the United States? What is the second country that you are picking for your, dual country residency? That's very interesting. Okay, we have a question from Sam. When you become a tax resident in Brazil, is there any tax treaty with the U.S. or do you have to pay both taxes? Sam, there is no tax treaty in a sense, for people to pay taxes in only one country. Very interesting enough, there are two treaties related to tax. But I say they are not tax treaties because those two treaties, they are actually in place only for the U.S. and Brazil to exchange information about people paying taxes in either country. Meaning that, if you are a U.S. citizen and you enter Brazil, Brazil knows that you are a U.S. citizen because of your passport, and Brazil could tell that you are in Brazil for a longer period of time. And guess what? They know from the United States that you are a taxpayer in the US and vice versa. So there is like these two tax treaties for Brazil and the US to kind of pinpoint who has income and who should be paying taxes in each country. Now, because there is no tax treaty to avoid double taxation, there's still something nice about Brazil and the United States. They have a kind of reciprocity approach in which the United States will usually, right? It's never like a sure shot, but it will usually grant you a credit for taxes that you are paying in Brazil for income that you have in Brazil, and vice versa. So in your case, right, Sam is in Belém. Sam has, I don't know, let's say retirement from the United States. The United States, of course, like they're going to collect you like Social Security taxes, and Brazil is going to look at your taxes paid in the US, and Brazil is going to say, you know what, like you paid this amount, so yes, I'm going to charge you tax over here, but whatever you paid in the US, I'm going to provide you a credit. Okay, so you paid in the US, it comes as a credit, and Brazil is going to charge you the difference. And by the way, for retirement, Brazil, if I'm not mistaken, like there was a change from last year to this one, I think there is a straight bracket. It's not a bracket that's going to change depending on your income. It's a straight bracket for retirement income of 15%. So it does not matter if you have like, you know, a Social Security of $1,000 or $10,000, you're going to pay the same 15%, and it does not matter if you have additional income. Okay, like the additional income, of course, you're going to pay different types of tax brackets, but for the retirement is a single bracket. But there you go. Like there is no tax treaty per se, but there is this kind of reciprocity approach in which these two governments they're going to try to provide a credit for what you paid in each other country, if that makes sense. Okay, but yes, you're gonna need to pay taxes in the US. You know, Uncle Sam is always after you, even if you are in Mars. Uncle Sam still wants you to pay taxes. There is no, I like to say, there is no switch to turn off the taxes in the US. Okay, and if you are in Brazil, of course, like if you are a resident of Brazil, it makes sense, right? Like I mean, for you to pay taxes in Brazil as well, Sam. I hope that was helpful. Charles is sharing Brazil and Portugal. Keep my U.S. passport in case I have to return home for family reasons. That's amazing. That's exactly what we were talking about, right, Charles? About the Brazil and Portugal combination. Portugal is pretty interesting. It does have a somewhat similar culture, but it's also very different at the same time. Particularly because Portugal is very, very small. It's such a small country. For those of you who know, whoever took the time to look at the map and see how small Portugal is, even when compared to Spain, right? Like I mean, if you look at the map, like Portugal is a tiny. A vertical strip of land. Is not like, a rectangle, but is more like of a vertical strip of land. And when you compare to Spain, Spain is a large chunk, right? Like a very a sizable chunk of land. But then when you compare to Brazil, both of them disappear, right? Like, I mean, and that's why, interesting to share nowadays, like Portugal, when you compare even like economy, when you compare whatever you want about Portugal and Brazil, of course, like Brazil is so much ahead of Portugal in pretty much every single type of statistics. One of them is not going to be safety. As you guys probably know, Portugal is super safe, is one of the safest countries in the world. And Brazil does have a lot of challenges on this front. But yes, really nice combination, Brazil and Portugal. Another very interesting thing, to me, is that even though Portugal is in like the European Union, is right by, by Spain, closer to France, closer to the UK. Costs in Portugal, they're pretty low, right? I did record a video not long ago. I was, talking about, breakfast, right? Like I love eating a good breakfast. That's probably my number one meal in the day, like at breakfast, right? Like sometimes I skip lunch. I'm just too busy. And then I'm going to eat, nicely in the dinner as well. But lunch for me, sometimes I just skip at all. But in Portugal, sometimes I would go I would go like there are a couple of major supermarket chains in Portugal, right? One I think is Continente, okay, and the other one, the one I love, is Pingo Doce, all right, Pingo Doce, which would translate as a sweet drop, like a drop of water but sweet, right? Like that's Pingo Doce. And in Pingo Doce, like I like to go there for breakfast. They have, a kind of a basic, simple kind of sandwich with, it could be cheese. If you eat like, pork, there could be ham. And then you have like a small juice. You have a delicious espresso, like a cafe, okay? And you also have the pastel de nata, which is, a kind of sweet. It's not a dessert. Is I don't know, like I don't know how to call, but a type of food. Is a sweet food which is super traditional, in Portugal, and you have those 4 items, and that's for less than €3. Okay, and this thing tastes good. This thing is like something that you can eat and feel well. Now, I was comparing to the United States, right? Like, so it does not matter in which state you are in the United States. If you go for breakfast, like if you go to McDonald's, right? Like, I don't think you're going to be able to have a breakfast for less than $5. And I cannot eat, breakfast at McDonald's. Like, sometimes I go for a sandwich or something, but I would never go, for breakfast at McDonald's. So there you go. Like, I mean, even comparing the United States to, to Portugal, you're gonna find, some very interesting prices in Portugal that are amazing to me. I think even comparing to Brazil, Portugal, and Brazil, sometimes, Portugal is gonna be offering better deals from a price perspective, which is amazing, right? Like, we're talking about Europe and comparing to Brazil, right? Particularly if we're talking about São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, and you compare to Lisbon, and prices are going to be better in Lisbon for a bunch of things. That's I never get that's hard for me to understand. It does not matter how much I experience both countries, okay? So there you go, Portugal and Brazil, such a great combination. All right. Let's see. Aaron says, has there been any talks about Brazilian government about changes to the golden visa requirements? Aaron, I've been expecting something to this effect, but I don't know. I mean, it looks like the Brazilian government, they are just busy with something else. Maybe they don't have, like people, like in the immigration management seats that are proactive. I don't know. There are no talks. I know that Brazil, particularly, the federal government, they've been trying to get more money. They've been trying to increase taxation in Brazil. And I'm very glad, to be honest with you, that they are not succeeding. I don't want to see, taxes being increased in Brazil. For those of you who don't know, the maximum tax bracket nowadays in Brazil is 27.5%. I think it's pretty reasonable, right? Like, it's not low and it's not crazy high as you would experience in Europe, right? Like, I mean, we're talking about Portugal. Portugal, it gets almost to 50%, right? It's 40, I don't recall, it's 45%, like for, the highest earners. So it gets almost like 50%. That's too much, okay? That's too much. And in Brazil, it's 27.5. We also have something that's really nice in Brazil that the current federal administration is trying to change unsuccessfully. Thank God. We have like a very special tax treatment for small businesses. So if you have a small business and you can, secure a permanent residency in Brazil, you're gonna have access to a special tax treatment, and sometimes you're gonna pay less than 10% in taxes at the small business level, and after that, you don't have a taxation. You don't have a taxation on the personal income level. So it's an amazing deal. And what I like about those approaches is that more people are paying taxes than not. Okay, and when you say, you know what, I want to increase taxes, particularly in Brazil, one of the consequences is that people are going to stop paying taxes. There is there is a big issue in Brazil. Like usually we even joke. We shouldn't be joking about that, but we say like there are laws that are going to work and there are laws that people are not going to follow, right? Like that's kind of unfortunate, but it does kind of reflect the society and culture. So what I like about the current taxation scheme is that it's reasonable and it works. But like I said, the current administration is unable to change that, and for some reason they are not able or interested in changing the Golden Visa framework for now. Okay, I'm getting a message over here. It says we are having some issue with the streaming. Let me check how we are over here. I'm changing our internet connection. Let's see if it works. Yeah, I mean, hopefully that was fixed. Like I got a message saying there was an issue and maybe buffering was occurring. Let's see if this problem went away. I'm going to proceed over here. If things become too cumbersome, you guys let me know and we can maybe continue the conversation another day. But I think it was resolved. All right, I have a Bill. Hey, Bill, good to see you over here. Oi, Luciano, sorry I'm late. Why I love Brazil, for the love of the Brazilian music, Bossa Nova, just love it. Started when I was 20 years old, Rio de Janeiro, blues by Nicolette Larson. Amazing, Bill, yes. I was even like preparing a couple of slides to talk about Brazilian music. We're probably gonna do that on Sunday, okay? I have a slide about Bossa Nova. I'm gonna share some basic information about Bossa Nova that was from a long time ago, and I'm also gonna talk about the more current rhythms that we have in Brazil nowadays. But we're gonna do that on Sunday. Hopefully our stream is gonna be better. Everything here is working as it should. I don't know if it is something with the internet. Hopefully you guys can at least hear me okay. All right. Okay, we have a Fussil Priming LLC. Oi, tenho certeza de que seu escritório ajudaria, mas vocês auxiliam na facilitação de abertura de um negócio no Brasil. So Fussil is asking over here if we assist with the opening of a company in Brazil. Yes, that's something we can advise on. We usually do like the advisory. We usually assist with your overall planning. And then we usually, share a partner attorney who does the paperwork for opening the business. Something for you to know, Fussil, that is kind of a pain in the neck in Brazil is that if you're not a legal resident, you need to hire a legal resident from Brazil to represent the entity. Okay, so that's kind of cumbersome thing. You don't have such a thing like in Portugal, even though Portugal does have some other requirements. But in Brazil, like if you are from the US, you want to open a company, you cannot open a company unless you hire a Brazilian legal resident to act on your behalf, right? So Brazil is not ideal, like the business framework is still, too old, for my opinion. Okay, Bill, thank you so much for the feedback. Sounds great, but video is buffering. Yeah, I can tell. I can see the same thing over here, and I guess we're gonna just proceed as is. We're gonna proceed as is. As long as you guys can hear me, we're gonna proceed as is, and we should have this fixed for our Sunday live stream. All right, let's proceed. But thank you for the feedback, Bill. That does help with my planning over here. All right, we have LNT. Hello, LNT. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's your first time here. You're welcome. Hi, have you had any clients from Nigeria for the Nomad visa? I'm looking to spend some time in Brazil, and I have heard great things. Yes, LNT, but it's a pain in the neck. I'm sure you know about that. It's a pain in the neck. Like Nigeria is not, as far as I know, the Brazilian consulate in charge of Nigeria, they are not extending the digital nomad over there. Okay, so the clients we have from Nigeria, they are clients who were able to secure the visitor visa. Okay, first they secured the visitor visa, then they came to Brazil, and then in Brazil we were able to get them the digital nomad. But you are unable. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? But that's what I remember from prior conversations with people from Nigeria and from a client from Nigeria. If you go to the Brazilian consulate in charge of Nigeria, I think it is the one in Lagos. Correct me if I'm wrong. They say, well, we don't have the digital nomad here, right? We don't offer the digital nomad, meaning there is no digital nomad visa for Nigerians. However, I guarantee if you are able to get a visitor visa, if you come to Brazil, then yes, we can get you the digital nomad, the residency, right? Then technically, if you get it in Brazil, is not called a visa, it's called a residency. But that's just a matter of a name. You're gonna get the same thing. You're gonna be able to stay in Brazil for a year. The requirements that are gonna apply are the same requirements from the visa, other than the health insurance, because in Brazil you don't have a health insurance. And if you are applying in the United States, yes, you need like health insurance. But that's the tip. That's the tip for you. Okay, you can get it. You can get it in Brazil after you enter Brazil. But if you try from Nigeria, as far as I remember, they are not gonna offer this track, this visa for you. All right, LNT. Okay, we have Santingo says, thanks for the info about the tax relationship between Brazil and the US. One more question. Are there any financing options for foreigners when purchasing property in Brazil? Ever use consortiums? All right, so two questions here. The first one, what about finance? So traditionally, finance is not easily available to foreign citizens. Whenever you have to guess, you're gonna guess red tape and bureaucracy, and usually resistance in terms of accepting things from abroad. So if you think about the finance, right, like if you go to a traditional Brazilian bank, or let's say to most banks in Brazil, they're going to ask, what about your income? And then you're going to say, well, I have income in the US. They're going to say, well, I don't understand about income in the US. I'm not going to read English. Even if I read in English, I don't know if this thing is legit. So I'm going to pretty much ignore your income in the US. And of course, if you are unable to prove income, how can you get finance, right? So that's one of the main problems. The other problem is that, like, the bank is usually going to see a foreign citizen as someone who's not reliable in terms of being a resident, right? Like maybe you start 1 year down the road, maybe you have a financial, maybe you have a romantic partner in Brazil, you're going to, break up with this partner and then you're going to disappear. So traditionally, even from a cultural perspective, banks are not super excited, to share, to extend a finance to a foreign citizen. Okay, now things are changing slowly, but they are. There are a couple of banks I'm gonna share over here in the chat window. Of course, that's just a start point. I'm not, providing any assurance that you're gonna get over there. But two banks that are starting to try to work with the foreign citizen community in Brazil is Bank Santander and Banco Inter. All right, so there you go. I have a couple of names over there. All right, Sam. So you can test those banks. They may have like a limited type of finance. Like if for Brazilians they do 20% down payment, 80% finance. With a foreign citizen, they would probably do something like 40% down payment and 60% finance. So there you go. You have two names, and you have the reasoning behind the resistance for Brazilian banks to extend financing to foreign citizens, right? Like the consortiums. Consortiums is a pretty different story. Consortiums, it's something very typical of Brazil. And I'm not sure if most of you would have heard about the consortiums. The consortium is a kind of a group investment in which from a very high level perspective, everybody is gonna pool their resources. Let's say if you have 100 buyers for real estate, everybody's gonna be paying monthly payments, and every month one of those 100 people are gonna get the bulk of the money and is gonna be able to buy the property, right? Next month, a different person is gonna be like chosen, and this person is gonna get the bulk of the money, right? So it's more like a type of a group investment type of thing. Is very typical of Brazil. Of course, nowadays the business model is more developed. They have a bunch of different approaches, but for a consortium, you would, in my understanding, you would need to be at least a resident, right? So for finance, sometimes even a visitor, maybe they are going to be able to get, as long as they are putting the 40% down payment, like in the finance route. But for the consortium, I think the bank is going to want to make sure that you are here on a more permanent basis. All right, Sam, I hope that makes sense. Fuzil is commenting, como gringo, tenho certeza de que há coisas para ficar de olho, right? So he's saying, as a foreign citizen, I'm sure I need to pay attention to some things. Yes, exactly. There are many challenges, Fuzil, and that's an interesting point because there is an investment route for you to secure permanent residency in Brazil, and it is truth investment in a company. We don't handle that here at the firm, just because we think it's a bad match, right? So the bad match is in a sense that, let's say, if you are used to business standards in the United States and you come to Brazil, it's a tough environment. Okay, it's a tough environment. Just like from the labor, side for me is the worst when it comes to foreign citizens. Like we have, a labor legislation from the 1930s. Okay, so it's like 100 years old, and on top of that, there is a lot of litigation. The way that the litigation or the labor courts are structured in Brazil. It makes like very easy for former employees to file a lawsuit to see if they can get an additional shot at their former employers to get some additional money. It's cultural. It's part of the Brazilian culture. Sometimes when you are in São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, you're leaving the subway station. If you can read Portuguese, there are going to be people holding like signs like, let's sue your boss. Free attorney, believe it or not. It's of a horrible taste, right? Like it's beyond the pale, right? Like it's horrible. Like let's sue your boss. Okay, but this is like a sign of a culture that is not really like supportive of new business, right? So in our understanding, let's say you want to secure the permanent residency through investment in business, and then you come to us, And once you get in this pickle, guess what? You're gonna say, listen, why did you why did you allow me to get on that track, right? So to avoid this type of situation in which many of our clients would be like in a bad spot in the future, we just say, listen, we don't do it, right? Like if you want to get the permanent residency based on investment in a company, you got to go elsewhere. We don't do over here at the firm because we don't want to hear that in the future, like people entangled in lawsuits, in a business that's not taking off. And then if they shut down the business, your permanent residency is not going to be renewed. So bad choice, in my opinion. Now, at the same time, there is there are a lot of foreign citizens making a lot of money in Brazil from the business side. So, the idea is that we don't want to sell something that we think is not going to work for most people. But I can tell you, particularly for people coming from, like developing nations, if they're coming from China, if they're coming from the Middle East, if they're coming from Africa, usually they are able to succeed in Brazil because they are also coming from tough environments, right? So when they come to Brazil and they see the problems that we have, they probably say, well, maybe it's worse back home, and now I'm going to thrive, right? But now, if we have clients coming from the United States, like the Western Europe, usually they have a kind of shock, right? When they see the labor issues, when they see, the red tape, which is massive across the board, some of the business practices. So, just sharing, Fuzio, a little bit more about, the journey of starting and running a business in Brazil. Marcela, hey Marcela, good to see you over here. Yes, so on Sundays we start at 3:30, okay, and on Wednesdays we start at 10:30. Okay, sorry, we start at 12:30 on Wednesdays, and we start at 3:30 on Sundays. But pretty good to see you over here, Marcela. You gotta join us for Sunday live stream. We're gonna be talking about bossa nova. We're going to be talking about the new rhythms. We're going to be talking about funky carioca. I'm not sure if Marcela heard about the current, funky rhythms, about sertanejo, which is the country. We're going to talk about pagode, which is a variety of samba. We're going to be talking about all of those things on Sunday, Marcela. I want to see you over here. Aaron Lopez, is João Pessoa well developed for digital nomads, or do you think it's too off-grid for healthy internet and etc.? Aaron, we have, like I stay, a good chunk of my time in Ceará, okay, which is a couple of states north of João Pessoa, right? João Pessoa is a city, it's not a state, but a couple of states up João Pessoa, that's where I stay. And what I do, I have the cable internet, which works like 90% of the time. The internet is very good. 10% you don't have internet. So what I do, I have, like a Starlink. Okay, I have Starlink, so, with a combination of cable internet and Starlink, you're good. Okay, because whenever cable is working, I think it's usually more reliable than Starlink, because Starlink, if there are lots of clouds, then you start to have some glitches. So I'm going to use, like in the northeast of Brazil, I'm going to use cable internet. And whenever there is a glitch with cable, I immediately transition to Starlink. So it does not matter if I am doing like, a Zoom call, if I'm working, through Slack, with our team, if I am, in a consultation, I work smoothly. But that's a combination: local cable, which you're gonna get in João Pessoa, Starlink as a backup. All right, and there you go. If you have those two things, you're gonna be good. Okay, Bill. Bill is looking after us. Thank you so much, Bill. Don't forget to like. We have a lot of people, just 9 likes. Please like our live stream. I really appreciate. That's how you can help us with our business, and you can also help other people like you to find this content. Thank you for reminding us, Bill. Yes, please like our live stream. We have, way less likes than viewers who attended the live stream. So please like. I really appreciate. I can see the likes over here as we speak. So yes, please go ahead and like it. And Bill is asking here, have you heard of Pix and Remitly? Yeah, so Pix is like nowadays is the main Pix is the main way of payment in Brazil. Okay, Pix is almost like, for those of you who are from the United States, you probably know Zelle, right? Z-E-L-L-E, Zelle is a platform across banks, and you can send money smoothly to a different bank. Let's say if I have a bank account in Chase and Bill has a bank account with a Bank of America, I can Zelle like $25 to Bill right now. There is no charge, there is no fee. Like I spend $25, Bill is gonna get $25 in his bank account, right? That's how it works. Pix is the same thing in Brazil, but is much more common. So nowadays, I'm gonna give you an example. It's shocking to some people, right? Let's say if you are like walking in São Paulo downtown, and then you see someone who's gonna be asking for money, right? Like experience you're gonna see even in the United States, like if you're in Los Angeles, San Francisco, right? But more common in Brazil. So if you are like in São Paulo downtown, Rio de Janeiro downtown, people say, can you give me some money so I can buy a sandwich, right? And if you say, I don't have cash, you know what they're going to tell you? Well, I'm going to accept Pix, right? Meaning that you can use your cell phone and you can use this tool. Is not an app, is a feature inside your bank app. All right, and every single bank in Brazil is going to have the Pix feature inside the bank's app. But then the person is going to say, well, you can pay for my sandwich using Pix, believe it or not. So that's to give you an idea about how Pix is actually adopted in Brazil. Really nice question, Bill. Well, Remitly is more like the international cross-border tool. Pix is not cross-border, right? Pix is 100% local. Okay, as far as I know, there is no Pix abroad. It's just like within the bank system in Brazil. Remitly is more similar to Wise. So you can send money to Brazil using Remitly. You can send money to Brazil using Wise. And they are all good, like for small amounts, right? Like I use for small amounts, whenever I'm sending money cross-border, I'm going to use Wise. Okay, particularly like when we need to send money to Portugal, like with funding, like our operation, right? Like our business in Portugal, like is growing, and in Brazil is well established, right? So we are always sending money to Portugal, and we use Wise because the amounts they're not big, right? Now, if you needed to send the money to Brazil for buying properties, then it's a different ballgame. Then we're gonna be talking about currency exchange banks is a completely different ballgame, all right? But for small amounts, I love Wise. Remitly, a lot of people, they like Remitly more, is another option, maybe just because I've been using Wise for so long, that's why I don't use Remitly. But as far as I know, Remitly is as good as Wise, at least from what I hear. Maybe you guys have a different opinion. All right, we're gonna be finishing our live stream soon. It looks like we don't have a buffering anymore, and hopefully it's gonna be working just like this on Sunday. Fuzio is saying obrigado pela orientação. Thank you for sharing. I need an office in Brazil so I can run my business with less red tape. Can you believe it? Yes, no, I believe. Yeah, so there is always some level of red tape, right, Fuzio? But yes, if you are locally, then yes, you can run your business in a easier way, right? Like just the Pix that we just spoke about. Believe it or not, but Pix, even like for B2B. So let's say if Fuzio has a company in Brazil and you're doing business with other companies, guess what? People are paying with Pix. So whenever you are abroad, you don't have access to Pix, right? And how do you get paid with Pix? You don't get. Okay, so you need to rely on wire transfers, which are a super pain in the neck in Brazil. And there you go. Like if you're locally, then you have access to Pix, and you are more like seen as a local. You're not just the gringo, right? Now you are more like a local. So I completely get it. I want to say thank you for everyone who are showing up. I want to say thank you for the likes. Okay, if you didn't like, there is still time for you to like it now. And I'm inviting you to joining us on this Sunday. We're going to be meeting at 3:30 Rio de Janeiro time. We're going to be talking about Bossa Nova. I wanna hear from Bill. I want to hear from Marcela what they know about Bossa Nova. Okay, and we're going to be talking about some more, current musical rhythms in Brazil, and of course, discuss about other topics of interest to you guys. And have a blessed rest of your Wednesday, and see you on Sunday.